Hi there, it's great to see you. Thanks for stopping by today. I'm John Merriman, and this is your Tuesday morning guitar song. There's really only one word you can use to describe Van Morrison, and that is soulful. It is said that he created the most spiritually transcendent body of work in the whole canon of rock and roll. He's a mystic, he's a poet, but most of all, he's a musical seeker who's traveled through more musical styles than most musicians could, even if they lived many lifetimes. R&B, Celtic, folk, blues, jazz. Van Morrison can be that sensitive singer-songwriter with nothing but a guitar, or he can be in front of a wailing R&B band or even a symphony orchestra. One thing that's constant is the quality of his voice. It can be incendiary, or it can be as soft and sweet as a hummingbird. But one thing I guarantee you, when he opens his mouth, you will always feel the width and the depth of his total emotions. To understand Van Morrison as a musician, you really have to go back to his childhood. He was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland in 1945, and his father worked at the Belfast shipyard. And that put his father in close contact with the incoming American sailors. Now, those American sailors were bringing things into Belfast that didn't even exist there at that time. But there was one thing that Van's father was very interested in, and that was record albums. He would buy American record albums off the sailors, and soon he accumulated one of the biggest record collections of American R&B, folk, and blues that existed in Belfast at the time. He was actually famous and well known for this record collection because these were highly prized, very rare, and very sought after commodities. And this record collection is what Van Morrison was raised around. He was listening to American artists way before anybody else was there, and he formed an immediate instinctual connection with many of them. Most of all was Leadbelly, the 1930 folk and blues artist from America. And then there was Solomon Burke, who was a Christian preacher and a soul singer in the late 50s. From Leadbelly, Van learned how to use his voice in a crude, rough, guttural way to express emotions with howls and grunts and moans and wailings. And then from Solomon Burke, the preacher, he learned how to testify the good news of R&B. Well, when Van was 12 years old, he got his first guitar, and he self-taught. And then at 15 years old, he switched to saxophone, and he took lessons. And he became a multi-instrumentalist where he could play soon guitar, saxophone, he could play drums, and he worked on harmonica. He soon joined an Irish show band, and that was a big band of the day with a horn section that played popular music. He quit school early, and he washed windows during the day, and he played in his show band at night. And then at 17, he started touring in the show band full-time. But Van was never happy with that type of music. He was a restless spirit. He wanted nothing but to get back to that R&B and blues that he heard as a child on those record albums. But there was no blues and R&B scene in Ireland in the early 60s at all. There was nothing, zip. There was a little in England, but nothing in Ireland. So Van took a chance. When he was in his early 20s, he quit the show band, and he started one of Ireland's first R&B bands. They started gigging, and they got tons of attention with Van out front wailing and moaning and testifying the blues. They got a record contract, and they called themselves Them. Well, the record business only wanted hits from them, and they were young men trying to make a living. So Them finally had to kind of change their sound a bit to sound more rock-like, to start having hits. And they did. Them had a few hits in Britain and also had a hit or two here in America. Van was all the talent in that group, and when they broke up, it was Van that the record companies and the producers wanted. And that started Van Morrison on his path in the music business. He had the soul of Leadbelly and Solomon Burke and Ray Charles and the Celtic mysticism, and that carried him through solo album to solo album to solo album, working out all those influences. And he was never comfortable with the music business. He found it very insincere. He didn't want to be a hit maker. All Van Morrison wanted to do was to be authentic and honest in every song he poured himself into. And soon he became one of the greatest voices of that generation, right up there with Bob Dylan. And today, he is the topic of your Tuesday morning fun fact. Here's your Tuesday morning fun fact. Back in the late 1960s, it was very controversial about what you could say or what you couldn't say in a song lyric. If your song contained controversial lyrics, you would probably not get any airtime by the DJs. This was highly demonstrated by the Rolling Stones in 1967. They had a song called "Let's Spend the Night Together." Well, DJs pretty much totally passed it up. And when the Rolling Stones wanted to perform the song on the Ed Sullivan Show, he made them change the lyric to "Let's spend some time together" before he would let them go on and sing it. Well, one topic that was almost totally taboo back then was interracial dating and love affairs. Artists like Chuck Berry had to put code words in his song about hair color and eye color so that hip people would kind of know what's going on. One real good example of this is a Van Morrison song. He wrote a song called "My Brown-Skinned Girl." Well, if he wanted any airplay, he had to change the name, and it became "Brown-Eyed Girl." And there's your Tuesday morning fun fact. Let's go back to 1970 when Van gets all jazzy. Please don't go away. I'll be right back. Thank you so much for coming along with me today. I really enjoyed it, and it's always so good to see you. Please like the show or like the page if you're watching on Facebook. Send the show off on your social media if the Spirit moves you, or send the show to a Van Morrison fan. You are my word of mouth, and I appreciate everything that you do. Come back and see me next week. And remember, you're never ready for your day without a song in your heart. Bye now.